There it is, folks. There it is. New York Stock Exchange. The reason why we're showing you that right now is because it's a rough day in New York. At Broad and Wall is exactly where New York Stock Exchange is. Listen to that bell right there. See it dinging, spinning around dinging. Spent many a year at the New York Stock Exchange, folks. So here's the deal. Trump announced, after the close yesterday, Trump announced his tariffs and what he was going to do globally with every country. We knew it was going to be rough. We knew he even said it's going to be bad at first and it'll get better going forward. In fact, in 2016, when he put the tariffs on China, he exacted tariffs fees down $5 a barrel. So all these people are saying it's going to raise prices. These tariffs are going to raise inflation because prices are going up. Oil prices going down will be the drag on inflation. So I think we're going to get bailed out with that, and I'm just hoping this market finds a bottom somewhere soon and let these other countries start to think about reducing their tariffs so we can do the same thing. Now, that would be the win. We got to hope. A lot to talk about today, including those tariffs. The president held a press conference again yesterday in the Rose Garden. We told you about it, detailing what they would look like, what things would look like, and how they're going to delve deeper into the subject a little bit later in the show. I don't want to do that right now. Let's continue with this. Here's what happened yesterday. So we had Governor Ron DeSantis on. Very, very exclusive. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. He hasn't done anything on Newsmax. He does rare occasion. He'll do something on Fox, but I'm very friendly with him. I've known him a long time. He came and gave us a nice, long interview, wide-ranging interview. We couldn't air it yesterday because we made way for the Trump Rose Garden announcement on tariffs, but I want to bring this interview to you in its entirety. We're going to skip a break. So here, Governor Ron DeSantis from yesterday, folks. Take a listen. All right, folks. The great state of Florida, the freest state in the union, by the way, the great state of Florida is I would call it a test case for conservative politics. And it's doing amazingly. And one of the reasons for it, probably the main reason for it, is the Governor Ron DeSantis. And Governor DeSantis joins us now. Governor, pleasure to have you on, sir. And taping the show, brought the show down to Florida about 3 years ago, and you've just really the place is amazing. It's what every state in the union should look like. Tell us a couple of key things. I noticed one of the most important things recently is that you, on the heels of Doge, Elon Musk and Big Doge, you've done the same thing here in Florida recently to a lot of success. I think the folks would like to hear about it.
Yeah, well, good to be with you, Eric. Well, first, on the federal Doge, I had rejected money under Biden for infrastructure, and they wanted us to do all this refugee stuff for his open border. And they had all these strings attached. Obviously, the immigration stuff we didn't want to do anyways. And so we rejected the funding, and we went to Biden's administration, hey, take this back. They didn't even know how to take money back because no one had ever given them money back. So we went to see Elon Musk in D.C. a few weeks ago, and I said, hey, Elon, I got this money. I'm not going to use the infrastructure because they want us to do woke things like regulate people, monitor people's tailpipe emissions. We're not doing that in Florida. I've also got all this money. They wanted me to house refugees, which we didn't want to do. These are illegal aliens. And so take it back. And Elon's like, if you want to give me money back, I'll take it. So literally, he got a Doge guy to work with my team, and we got that done. So we ended up returning close to $1 billion to the federal government to help their Doge efforts. Now, we've said in the state of Florida, we were Doge before Doge was cool. So right now, we have the lowest number of government workers at the state level per capita in the entire United States of America. Our budget, even though we have 3 million more residents than New York State does, our budget is less than half of New York State's budget. And since I've been governor, if you look at Florida's 180-year history and all the debt that was accumulated, I've retired 41% of it in my tenure, and we're going to end up doing over 50% over the next year or two. So, we make difficult choices. There was one year I had to veto 3% of the budget because we had to keep our house in order. But we are really excited about what we've been able to do. Now, The main thrust of what we're doing, yes, in state agencies, which we do anyways, but we're utilizing some of Elon's techniques with artificial intelligence and some of these things to try to get at things that maybe the human beings weren't able to see. So we're always looking to do better. But we want to be able to go into local governments and do Doge there, because what happens is these local governments, their budgets have grown dramatically over the last 5 or 6 years in Florida. Why? Because property values have gone up. They assess people's property at higher levels, and so they've had a windfall in property tax revenue. But I don't know that these increases are justified, and I think we're going to be able to show taxpayers, hey, wait a minute, your local budget has gone through the roof. If they just return to where they were 5 or 6 years ago, we could then save a lot of money and then do property tax relief. And that's kind of the main thing we're looking to do. Looking at the ballot in 26, property taxes in Florida constitutionally are vested with local government. State has a minimal role in that. So you would need to do a constitutional amendment. But you look at this and you think to yourself, is a home and your land, is that private property or not? Because if it's private property, at some point, it's got to be outside the reach of the government. But yet with property taxes, you're effectively just paying rent to the government indefinitely. And that really is not the way it should be. I know these are legacy taxes from centuries ago, but we want to look at that and say, we have no income tax in Florida. If we could go after property tax, we are in a unique position in our state to offload tax burden at the local level to our foreign visitors, our tourists, our non-residents, part-time residents who come and visit and utilize Florida, so we can have a big tax cut for residents. So we're working to do that, but the Doge is a really important component of setting the table for the property tax referendum in 2026.
It's amazing, Governor. So no property taxes, no income taxes in the state of Florida. You want to reduce property taxes, and yet you still end up with an excess revenue for your budget. How in the world can you be doing this when states like California, New York, Illinois just are coming in billions, if not tens of billions, below what they're spending?
Well, our economy in Florida has been ranked #1 in the nation 2 years in a row by CNBC, as well as U.S. News and World Report. Neither of those publications want to rank Florida 1. They would rather rank New York or California 1, but the proof's in the pudding. And what happens is, Eric, is New York, California, they do bad policies. It repels taxpayers. People leave, businesses leave. They end up not raising as much revenue because their economic base shrinks. And so they go back to the well and do the tax policy again, and it causes the same reaction. So they're in a vicious cycle where they have higher taxes and regulation chasing a smaller economic base. And, you know, California's got a lot of wealthy people still, but we have gotten a lot that have moved to Florida. New York, you've seen the economic base shrink there. So they're never going to be able to square this circle. Whereas in Florida, when we are cutting taxes, when we are maintaining no state income tax, that creates a bigger economic base. And so you end up raising revenue, more revenue, even as you're taxing very lightly. And in fact, you know, we've quadrupled the rainy day fund since I've been governor. Just in the last 6 years. We've paid off, as I mentioned, 41% of the debt, but we still have a big surplus, even on top of the debt that we have retired. And so I think we're in a virtuous cycle of the good policy gets rewarded by an expanding economic base. We have this gusher of revenue that we're able to do things like cut taxes, pay down debt, and then do some projects that a growing state needs to do. So one of the things I launched a program a couple years ago called Moving Florida Forward, because we have issues with traffic in some of these areas. Some of these projects weren't even scheduled to begin till next decade. So we accelerated that with an infusion of additional cash. And now we're going to be able to bring these projects to completion 5, 10, even 15 years ahead of schedule. And that, I think, is a good use of taxpayer funds because people don't want to sit in traffic all day.
What happens is, you know, I guess COVID helped this situation, but people came from the north, northeast, came from around the country, I guess, even around the world. They come here and they put pressure on the infrastructure, creates a revenue surplus, allows you to expand the infrastructure with the revenue surplus. Here's the issue that I, as a Floridian now 3 years, the concern I have, is in the voting booth. Now, a lot of these folks come down from New York, and all of a sudden you're seeing a little bit like Florida is so red, and then all of a sudden Florida 6 becomes a toss-up. Thankfully, Randy Fine won it last night, yesterday, the other day in Florida 6, and Florida 1, Jimmy Petronis, your chief financial officer, locked down Florida 1, which was great news for the country. Question is the voting demographic, does it become a little bluer with these folks coming down, providing a lot of income, but I'm afraid of things like congressional seats, and we'll talk about the Second Amendment in a second.
Actually, that's not the way it's worked out, thankfully. So you go back to 2018 when I got elected, Florida was a 1-point state. The governor races, presidential races leading into that, all decided by 1 point. I got in with less than 1 point margin. And so folks in Florida were very sensitive about, hey, this is a very delicate political balance. What could happen? Now, I threw caution to the wind and I governed very boldly and unapologetically. I think that's part of the reason it's moved right, because we've drawn a sharp contrast with the Democrats. But I will tell you, especially when we saw the migration really pick up at the beginning of COVID, I had a lot of supporters that were freaked out by seeing all these New York license plates and even California license plates, because I was born and raised in Florida. I don't think I ever saw a California license plate. I mean, that was a place people aspired to move to until the more recent times. They never lost population. So then we're seeing California plates. People go, oh my gosh, it's just like Berkeley moving to Florida. We can't have that, because if you have another 50, 100,000 net Democrats, it could end up going blue. And I even had supporters, they would go in South Florida, kind of in your neck of the woods. They'd go to the supermarket. They'd put a flyer in the windshield of everyone with the New York plate saying, don't vote down here like they do up there. But what ended up happening was, when I became governor, we had 300,000 more Democrats registered in the state than Republicans. By the time I ran for re-election in 22, we had flipped that. We were 300,000 more Republicans than Democrats. And then after I got reelected, it was like on steroids. We now have 1.2 million more registered Republicans than Democrats. So clearly these are not liberals.
This is on you, Governor. This is on you. You stepped in and you went at it with the woke nonsense with Disney. You came in, you made Florida a carry state, free carry state. You did everything right, and this is amazing that this amount of immigration from the Northeast is actually turning into more conservative or Republican voters, because you're changing hearts and minds, literally.
Well, I think because we've drawn a sharp contrast, that's done two things. Kind of freedom-loving conservators are like, Florida is the Shangri-La of conservatism in the United States. It's a free state. That's where we want to go. So we've attracted more conservative people. But when you do things like constitutional carry, when you take on the woke, when you do some of the things that we did that really draws a sharp contrast with the left, it does repel some of these left-wing voters who really, they were upset that we fought Disney and said, we're not going to allow some third grader to be told by a teacher in Florida that they were born in the wrong body and that they can change genders. That is not appropriate. That's not what parents want. And if we have to take on the most powerful company in the state's history to make sure parents were protected, we will do that. And most people agree with that. But some of these liberals really don't. So I do think Florida, because of the way the legacy media has treated us, I think it has served their narratives, even though they're phony narratives. I think it has served to repel some of the people on the left from wanting to move, and I think it's served to attract that. So it's been an imbalance. It used to be pretty similar, maybe even skewed Democrat in years past. Now it's definitely Republican. In fact, Eric, if you look at all 49 states since I've been governor, and you looked at the people that have moved from each of those states individually to Florida, all 49 have had more Republicans move to Florida than Democrats.
Oh,
that's a pretty amazing statistic.
That is good. So people are smart. They go, let's go to where like-minded people live. Florida clearly doing. One of the other things I've noticed that you have done, Governor, and really awesome, is that you've embraced law enforcement. I don't know, I've lived in a lot of states. I don't know any governor that's embraced law enforcement to the extent you have. You've backed your sheriffs. It's so important to back your law enforcement officers out there risking their lives, and it's paying off for you. Tell us about that initiative.
Well, we have a 50-year low in the crime rate, and part of the credit and a lot of the credit goes to the folks wearing the uniform who are actually out there doing the work. But they know, and I know, that if you have bad leadership and bad policies for the state, then that's going to undercut their ability to keep people safe. So we've supported their mission, both in terms of our rhetoric, saying we support the blue, but also in terms of policies. And so you saw how they were being treated in New York City, budgets being cut in Chicago and Seattle and all these places. The politicians were attacking law enforcement after the BLM, during the BLM riots, all this stuff. We're like, that's not going to fly in Florida. So we saw an opportunity to capitalize off what the blue states were doing. So we launched a program for all law enforcement recruits get a $5,000 signing bonus right off the top. So if you come from NYPD and you come down to the sheriff's department in, say, Brevard County, which is Florida's Space Coast, you get a $5,000 bonus right off the top. If you go to the police department in Tampa, you get a $5,000 bonus. And so we've had an influx of some really, really good officers that have moved from those areas where they weren't getting support down to Florida. And, you know, $5,000 is great, Eric, but it isn't what it used to. It doesn't buy what it used to buy. And it's nice to have, but I think these folks who get it will say, you know what, the reason why I think it's special is because it shows that the state has our back. The fact that they're willing to do a program to do these bonuses means I'm appreciated in the communities in Florida. And I've spoken to so many of these folks who've made the trip and made the move from other states to Florida. And I haven't met one person that's regretted it. They are appreciated by their community. They're backed by strong policies in the state. And I remember it hit me a couple years ago how what we were doing in Florida was reverberating beyond when I was in Southern California. And I ran into one of the police chiefs in one of the nicer places in Southern California. I say, hey, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing great, but you know, every single one of my officers now wants to move to Florida because of what you're doing. And that's the contrast. We had a sharp contrast with those blue jurisdictions, and people in uniform responded to want to work here. And then the public is safer as a result of the efforts.
That's right. You embraced law enforcement, being law enforcement officers versus in those liberal cities and states, they say, you know, the criminal, be careful. Don't hurt the criminal. Don't violate the rights of the criminals. And by the way, if you don't have a shot, the vaccine, we're going to fire you. And to your credit, you said, well, come on down. We'll take all you folks. That was a great program. Is your legislature backing you up on, most important to me would be that your Second Amendment protected Second Amendment rights? How are they responding to the constitutional carry, for an example, and anything else Second Amendment related?
Well, I think those folks who followed Florida will remember before I became governor, the Florida legislature and my predecessor as governor, they signed some restrictive gun laws. So of red states, Florida was at that time the most restrictive. What we've been able to do is we've been able to enact constitutional carry, which is defined as permitless concealed carry. So you don't have to ask for a permission slip from the government to be able to exercise your Second Amendment rights as a law-abiding citizen. In that bill, the legislature did not include so-called open carry. So you don't need a permit to have your firearm in public if it's concealed, but for whatever reason, they didn't think that they weren't willing to support at the time if it was somehow visible. But Eric, as a gun guy, you know, the concealed carry is more significant than open carry. There are more states that have open carry than have permitless concealed carry. So we did the heavy lifting. Now we just need to figure out, can we just get open carry? And the reason is people say, well, why do you need it? Most gun owners would choose to carry concealed. But if you're at a restaurant and you take your jacket off and someone sees your gun, is that a crime or not? It shouldn't be a crime in a Second Amendment state. Now, the House of Representatives in Florida, you know, we now have almost a 3-to-1 supermajority in the Florida House of Representatives. And part of that was we got a supermajority when I got reelected in the big 20-point wave in 2022. But even with almost a 3-to-1 supermajority, they have not been willing in the Florida House of Representatives to pass the open carry component to the constitutional carry. And, you know, my thing on this, Eric, is these guys run in these primaries. They get asked if they're for it. They all say they are. And then magically, sometimes it doesn't get across the finish line. So there was a state rep that filed a bill in the Florida House of Representatives for open carry. And basically, that representative was pressured by the leadership in the Florida House of Representatives to take the bill out. And so it wasn't even, when the legislative session started, we didn't even have a bill in the Florida House filed for open carry. So I think it raises a larger issue that affects Second Amendment, but beyond. Because Florida's gone Republican so decisively in the last 4 or 5 years, people know the only way you get elected in most parts of this state is with an R by your name. And so what I'm seeing is liberals running as Republicans. Maybe they get special interest funding, they can fool people and win a primary. Then they get in, but they still govern to the left rather than govern conservative. So that's something that we didn't really have to deal with as much when we were a swing state. It was the battle lines were drawn. Now I think you are seeing some of these folks who are more liberal come in the party. I mean, honestly, the special election in Florida 6, I know you had mentioned that with Fine, and President won that by over 30 points. I won it by over 30 points in 22. Yeah. Fine won it by, I think, 13 or 14 points. So it was a pretty big underperformance from that. But part of the reason he underperformed, people were trying to say, oh, it shows that Trump's losing sway. That is not true at all. Fine was a more squishy Republican. He had supported Second Amendment restrictions. He opposed my immigration legislation to help Donald Trump deport illegal aliens, and even tried to make Florida a de facto sanctuary state. So he had some unique liabilities as a candidate, and it required the Republicans to spend like $5 or $6 million and the president to do these teletown halls to bail him out. And that's what happened. The election day turnout was gangbusters. That was all driven by the president of the United States. I don't think it's a reflection of Florida, maybe moving in a more blue direction. I think we'll be solid in the midterm and beyond. I think it was a more candidate-specific issue.
All right, that great information, by the way. One final thought before you go. Last time I saw you, I drove up to Tallahassee, had a nice conversation with you. It was right before the 2024 election, and one of the ballot initiatives was marijuana, and you were saying that there was a Canadian company who was trying to get marijuana legalized in the state. They were Canadian, they weren't even American, let alone Floridian. It was voted down. It was very close, Governor. You really went to bat, and you won. Tell us, will that come up again? Will this continue every election, every cycle, to be one of the main ballot initiatives?
Yeah, so that one company spent $141 million to try to get this. And, they're not doing that for their health, right? They're doing it because they wrote an amendment that they would have been able to monopolize the market. And so I think there's a couple things. One, whatever you think about marijuana, it shouldn't be in the Constitution. This is a policy issue. It can be dealt with legislatively. But what I saw in this amendment, it was structured in a way that would allow unlimited public use of marijuana. It gave marijuana companies total immunity from civil liability. I mean, it was one of the most egregious power grabs that I had ever seen. And we had people who were enthusiastic supporters of marijuana who were very much opposed to the amendment once they understood what was in it. So it went down. It failed by about 500,000 votes. I don't know if they're going to make a big push on it in 2026. But the problem when you do this stuff in the Constitution, if it doesn't work, then you have no way to undo it, because you can't just have the legislature go in and fix it. It's now part of the Constitution. So my concern has been, let's keep the Constitution clean of this stuff. Now, as a policy matter, I just had to look, because on the one hand, I don't care what people are doing. And in Florida, you know what? We have medical marijuana. We have almost 1 million people with medical marijuana cards. And I can tell you, they're not all deathly ill. It's become a cottage industry, and people do use it in private without law enforcement breaking down their door. And so in that sense, it's like, it is what it is. But I also know what happened in Colorado and California has not worked. You have a bigger black market than you ever had before. You have rampant public use. And the governments don't even bring in tax revenue at this point because the black market is so big. So I think as a policy matter, it has not proven to be successful. And I understand if we were starting society over from new, how would you approach it? Maybe it'd be a little bit different than how it's been approached now. But to put this in the Constitution, I think would have been a big mistake. And especially with Florida's culture. We have more of a tourist culture. People like to come. They appreciate our theme parks, our beaches, all the things we have to offer. You don't want it to be like Denver, where it's reeking of marijuana everywhere, by giving people a constitutional right to use this in public. It didn't make any sense. It would have made the company a lot of money. There's no question that this one company was poised to be able to make probably billions of dollars, but that's not what a constitution's for. The constitution's for to be protecting all of us, not to create a revenue stream for a company traded on the Canadian Stock Exchange.
Governor Ron DeSantis, really appreciate your time. You're a busy man, and keep crushing it, my friend. If someone came up to me the other day and said, Florida, when I was growing up, it wasn't cool. Florida's cool now. I'm like, yeah, oh, hell yes, it is. Governor, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, folks, we will be right back. So, Manalapan, Florida. Mad Dog. Can I get the control room cam for a second? Mad Dog. Manalapan, Florida is just south of here of west of Palm Beach. Very exclusive island, folks. The likes of Mr. Sean Hannity live on Manalapan, and the likes of Mr. Bill O'Reilly, I hear, maybe buying a place in Manalapan. A little birdie was chirping in my ear a couple of weeks ago. What do you think of that, Mad Dog?
I think that's very interesting.
How about the you know what we were going to do? We were going to play the picture of the person who texted me saying, why do you talk about Mad Dog 15, 20 times a show? Well, because they want to be on TV, Mad Dog, just like you and Ben and the rest of the crew back there. All right. Let's go. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and with April 15th fast approaching, less than 2 weeks away, folks, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you wait, the worse it gets for you. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that's passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never, never, never. I added a third never. Contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. That's really good knowledge to have. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10, $10,000, or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th, just under 2 weeks away, around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. All right, folks, the Democrats continue to relentlessly defend illegal aliens and terrorists and thugs like MS-13 members. I understand disagreeing over politics, but why would anyone in their right mind want a violent criminal organization roaming freely in our own country? Caroline Leavitt took a minute to remind the Democrats exactly what they're fighting so hard to protect.
Let me tell you why we've made this commitment. MS-13, may I remind each and every one of you, is a brutal and vicious gang. They raped and strangled a 20-year-old autistic woman to death in Maryland. They hacked 4 people to death with machetes in a park on Long Island. They have kidnapped, sexually tortured, and shot a teenage girl in Texas after she insulted them, allegedly. Killed and mutilated a 17-year-old girl in Virginia, stabbing him 16 times and cutting off his hands. They beheaded and cut out the heart of a man in Washington, D.C., They raped and murdered a 13-year-old girl in California. They sex trafficked a slew of young girls, including one who was just 12 years old. Raped an 11-year-old girl in Brooklyn while her brother was in the room. These are vicious criminals. This is a vicious gang. And I wish that the media would spend just a second of the same time you have spent trying to litigate each and every individual of this gang who has been deported from our country as the innocent Americans whose lives have been lost at the hands of these brutal criminals. We maintain our position in very
People are
strong.
garbage. They're trash. They're horrible. They're breaking law. Being here, they get here, they continue to break our laws. They broke their own laws. That's why they became gang bangers. What the hell do we want these people here for? And why are you protecting them, Democrats, you lunatics, you loony nut jobs? What are you doing? The View just produced its first head scratcher of the week. But again, it's only Thursday. Apparently now they want to cancel laws written by white men. Take a listen to this. Well, listen harder. Listen harder. Listen harder. You can hear it? You can hear it? All right, let's get out of this. Let's get out of this, Mad Dog. Let's get out of it. Well, he was saying something like they want to cancel laws written by white men. I wonder if Elie Meisel, that guy who was just saying Elie, whatever it is, I wonder if he realizes that the U.S. Constitution was written by all white men. You want to rip that? Oh, you probably do. You're a liberal, Democrat, progressive nut job. We usually don't see a lot of nonsense from our friends in Texas, one of the other free states, not as free as Florida, of course. But the latest House resolution, I'm not sure where they came up with this and why they're doing this. Take a listen.
And consider H.R. 32.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Chair is none. The rules are suspended. Following resolution, the clerk will read the resolution.
H.R. 32 by Lalani recognizing Pakistan Day at the state capitol.
Oh, hell no. Pakistan Day in Texas? What is the point? Where is the upside? Who are you trying to please? Texas? Pakistan Day in Minnesota? Sure. In New York? Okay. California? Every day's Pakistan Day in California. Texas? Governor DeSantis, no Pakistan Day in Florida. Jasmine Crockett either slipped up badly here or truly just never has any idea what's actually coming out of her flapping mouth. She let the truth come out when she was talking about the left's legal lawfare against Trump. Listen.
Because we have people that are currently serving and they're saying things like, ignore the judge's order. What it means to have law and order in this country is that you follow the order and you go through the appeals process, even if you dislike what the judge did. Thank you. And
So basically, the left's stupid plan is to keep Trump tied to appeals courts for the entirety of his second term. Who does that help? And by the way, if you do that, he's just going to run for a third term. He's just going to run for a third term, and your heads will explode. Sunny Hostin from The View just entered another baseless argument against voter ID laws. Listen to this one.
The reason Democrats don't want voter ID is because they make it much more difficult for elderly people, people that don't travel, don't have a passport, poor people that don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where Black people had to prove their right to vote. And oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really the bottom line is voter suppression. And I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Oh, you dummy, Sonny. I know you're an attorney. You're a dummy. I've been on the View twice, and she was the meanest one of them all. But that's not why I'm saying this. No voter ID laws. Yeah, it absolutely allows more people to vote. Ones that are not supposed to vote. The ones that are illegally voting. That's the whole point. Stop the illegal voting. We just found out this week that Doge found several million illegals with Social Security numbers, which means they can vote, Sonny, and they're not allowed to. Check the freaking Constitution. I love scrolling through X or TikTok and getting reminded on a daily basis that this country is facing a crippling mental health crisis by Democrat liberal leftists.
Happy Pride Month! Let's talk about my pronouns. So I use them, their pronouns. These are a singular pronoun, so you conjugate it the same way you would with he or she. So Z has green and purple hair. I like their makeup. and I think that cool vest belongs to them. So that's how you use my pronouns. Let me know if you guys use neopronouns, because I think they're very cool, and I like hearing all the variations of them.
All right, you nut job. Here's my pronoun. Shut the Z up, okay? Go home. You're losing it. I'm done with this. We're going to go to break right now. I can't take it. I need a break. I need a sip of coffee or something. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. That's a very nice picture of Atlanta. Real nice picture. Beautiful city. Beautiful city. Nice weather. I think they just missed a big storm that was just traveling west to east, a little bit north of them. Tennessee and Kentucky got walloped, folks. So you've heard me talk. Oh, there it is. Hello, Skycam. Hello, Skycam. You've heard me talk about Patriot Mobile for quite a while now. You probably already know that for years they've stood in the gap for every American that believes that freedom is worth fighting for. They're the real deal, folks. So let me ask you a question. Have you switched to Patriot Mobile yet? If the answer is no, then I have to ask, why not? Are you worried about coverage? Don't be. Patriot Mobile is one of the few cell phone service providers that operates on all three of the major cell phone tower networks. Fact is, if you have a cell phone and a cell phone service in this country today, you can get exceptional or even better service with Patriot Mobile. That's why they offer a coverage guarantee that others can't. Or maybe you haven't joined Patriot Mobile because you think maybe the switch is painful. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. In fact, it's easy. No need to spend hours in a retail store waiting your turn. Simply call Patriot Mobile's 100% US-based team from the comfort of your own home or office, and they'll have you activated in minutes. Still locked into a contract, you say? Not a problem. Patriot Mobile's contract buyout program covers up to $500 per device. Keep your same number, keep your same phone, or treat yourself to an upgrade on the phone. Back to my point. What are you waiting for? It's time to join Patriot Mobile today. Support faith, family, and freedom with every call and text you make. Don't wait. Do it right now. Do it today. Go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code RAV and get a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. All right, Democrats. Democrats want gang members and criminals in this country.
Your tax dollars are paying for them to be housed there. They didn't just pay for the flight. The tax dollars are paying for every single one of these men, many of them, now innocent people who are not gang members, to be housed in a prison and they were sent there with no due process.
Oh, I'm sorry. No due process for the criminals. They broke the law getting here. They continue to break the law. They want due process for violent gang members who are in our country illegally. Due process, she says. And they want more of that due process for illegal criminals than for their own countrymen and women. And why? Well, they need the votes. On Monday, get this. The DNC, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, the whole leftist insane clown posse, they're suing President Trump over his executive order to stop non-citizens from voting. You believe it? They want more illegals voting. That's what the lawsuit's about. This is no longer a conspiracy theory by conservatives like me and you. They're on a mission to replace American voters who no longer want them. If you ever wonder why the Democrat Party has about 21% approval rating at best, look no further than this grown toddler meltdown by a U.S. senator.
But we, the people, are powerful. We are strong. We have changed history. We have bent the arc of the moral universe. And now is that moral moment again. It's the moral moment again. God bless America. We need you now.
This man represents the entire Democrat Party personified. Let's be clear. Cory Booker filibustered nothing. He prevented nothing. He accomplished nothing. So, yeah, he's the personification of the reinvented, the new Democrat Party.
When is it going to be enough? My voice is inadequate. My efforts today are inadequate to stop what they're trying to do.
You're right. You accomplished nothing, Cory. Well, actually, what he did accomplish was becoming a walking ad for Depends adult diapers. So Cory decided to take over the Senate floor, filibuster, and filibuster he did for 25 hours. beating the record. Go Corey! Except we're not really sure what he was trying to achieve other than a world record and soiled underwear. And what was Corey crying and whining about out there on the Senate floor in his adult diapers? Was it in defense of those who've died at the hands of illegal migrants? Oh, hell no, not that. Was it to defend those in North Carolina and California who lost everything they've had to natural disasters? No, not that either. So what did he do? Well, simply put, Cory Booker did all of that for 25 hours, the world's longest filibuster ever, all in the name of, drumroll, defending illegal alien gang member invaders and terrorists. I'm not kidding you. They want them here. They're dying to have them here. This is all they want in the world, is to have illegal criminal migrants to hand out Social Security numbers to so they can illegally vote in our elections and also have the added bonus of terrorizing our city streets in the process. Watch that liberal progressive nut job, Jamie Raskin, practically begging to keep the scum here in America,
while appealing whichever ones they want to appeal, and to demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers. And I especially...
Nobody loves an illegal invader gangbanger than a Democrat does. Makes them do wild things like stand on the Senate floor for 25 hours, crying, begging, pleading, peeing in your own adult diaper just to be allowed to stay. A grown man willing to pee into an adult diaper on C-SPAN, that's how you know it's important to them. But they're just not willing to let President Trump protect Americans. Absolutely not. No way. You see, they're counting on these judges, the activist judges, to stop what Trump is doing from happening. They're banking on the fact that these judges were the only thing standing in the way of removing those thugs from this country once and for all. But what they didn't count on is this kind of revolution this time that's forcing. It's time to end the corruption. These judges have relied on their unwarranted power for far too long. It's time to stop them. It's really becoming a problem. These judges, these activist judges, are horrible. They're ruining the Constitution. They're ruining the country. Doesn't matter how many senators decide to cry and wet themselves on the Senate floor to try and prevent that from happening. We have to stop these activist judges, period, at all costs. Elections matter. That's why elections matter. When you have the White House, the Senate, and the House, you put your own judges in. Elections matter. Tuesday's House hearing on just that, judge overreach, produced an amazing moment when Jasmine Crockett, Jazzy Jasmine, who talked about simply dealing with the judge's ruling or going through the appeals process, was put in her place then and there on the outright hypocrisy by crying Dems.
AOC, as we know her, filed articles of impeachment on Justice Thomas and Alito. Ms. Crockett was one of the co-sponsors along with Mr. Cohen, both members of this committee. It does seem interesting that when the shoe is on the other foot, everyone is self-righteous.
Well done, Congressman Issa. And Newt Gingrich absolutely nailed it with his opening statement.
In his first inaugural, President Lincoln warned that if the Supreme Court held supreme rule, quote, the people will have ceased to be their own rulers, having to that extent practically resigned their government into the hands of that eminent tribunal, close quote.
Knew it was good. Knew it was good. The people will cease to be their own rulers. The judges are crucial to their battle. It's the only weapon they have left. And they know. George Soros knows this, which is why he poured so much of his own money into that Wisconsin race. Elon Musk, also understanding the importance of that race, also threw his money behind the Republican candidate. And that's all the leftist machine and legacy media they want to draw attention to. Elon Musk. Not that Soros did the same thing on the other side. Soros has forever funded judges, soft on crime DAs, BLM protesters, pro-Hamas protests, but it doesn't matter. To them, the issue is clear. Elon Musk is making too much noise. He's saying too many things that make sense, and he's successfully exposing what the left is trying to do. And Jake Tapper admitted that truth. It's not okay with Elon Musk when he gets involved, but it's okay when George Soros does the same thing because he's quieter in the background.
Anytime anybody brings this up, a Republican will say, well, what about J.B. Pritzker, and what about George Soros, and what about this, what about that? And I guess the answer is You don't see George.
I didn't
First
see
of all,
George Soros in
you don't see them out there talking.
No.
Right? I mean, they might be giving money to organizations, this and that, and people can criticize that
They
if
all
they want.
do. They all
But the idea that, like, oh no, I am going to tell these voters, forget like hiring Scott Walker to do it or somebody on the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to tell them.
Got it. George Soros doing America killing stuff in the shadows is okay to the Democrats and the media. Musk doing America saving stuff in the spotlight, not so much. And all because of one thing, President Donald Trump spending 25 hours talking about one man and thinking that sitting up there in your ivory tower, you're acting like some sort of hero up there. Well, that pretty much is the Democrat Party in a nutshell. Democrats, what a tangled web we weave when we hate one man more than we love our fellow Americans. And we love power and control far more than we love our own country. Before we head to break, I just want to remind you all about my podcast and YouTube page, which are both updated daily with brand new, unique content, folks. I want to let you hear the show, listen to the show whenever you want. Tons of other new content, anytime, anywhere. Be sure to subscribe now so you don't miss out. Very important to subscribe to my YouTube page and to the podcast. All right, we will be back in 2.5 minutes. Whoa. Snow still? Wyoming? Wow. Looks like fun. I don't know. I moved to Florida because I hate the cold. Grew up in Chicago. Yep. Liberal Chicago. I live in nice, warm, conservative Florida. All right. So, yeah, I talked to Mad Dog a lot. Mad Dog, can I grab the control room shot? And you have the big shot? You have the big one? Oh, the overhead and the back shot, Mad Dog? You got that? There's the guys up front. Yep, it's coming up. All right. You have to switch it. So we roll. It's all right. You got it? Talk to me.
I don't have it.
Give me the other one. All right, give me the other one, the close-up shot. Okay. There it is. All right. All right. So they say, why are you always talking to Mad Dog? We have that tweet. There it is. Hey, Eric, what's your obsession with Mad Dog? You mentioned his name 15, 20 times. I don't think it's 15 or 20 times. Maybe a handful of times on bump-ins. But, look, these guys work hard. I like to give them a little bit of exposure. Tell their friends, watch the show. You know, see us hanging out. They work really hard. They do a great job with the show. A couple of things that we missed in one of the other blocks. Two stories. Well, Elon Musk put all of the Tesla vandals on notice. He knows who's behind the string of attacks, and he's not going to sit back and do nothing about it. He's going to go after him. Watch.
General Bondi has said the same thing. I believe that is exactly what will happen.
Do you know who they are?
We're coming for them.
Do you know who those generals are?
We know. We do.
Yeah, they're going to come. Pam Bondi, ready for you. Ready for you. Love Pam. Still waiting on that Epstein stuff, but let's go. In the meantime, let's go find out who these vandals are and throw the book at them, because they're domestic terrorists. The Democrats are making plenty of noise and causing tons of problems, yet nobody agrees with them at all. Listen to CNN break down the latest Democrat approval numbers.
Holy Toledo. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling. You think these numbers are bad? Let's go to this side of the screen. We'll look how Democratic voters feel. Get this. The plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49%, and just 40% approve. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Oh, my goodness gracious, you just can't get worse than these numbers.
Yeah, they're crashing. They're crashing and burning. They have the lunatics like Jasmine Crockett still out there talking about how, DEI matters. You have that Eiley Meisel guy who's on MSNBC or CNN, whichever one, that's saying that it doesn't matter if the deportees are gangbangers. They've broken the law and they're gangbangers. It's like they deserve due process. You're out of your freaking mind. They're not American citizens. We don't have to offer them due process crap, okay? Stop, Democrats. Oh, there it is. There's the back of the room shot. That gets everyone in there. You don't want to leave anyone out. Trish in the back row there. Wave Trish there. Tariffs. I need to talk about tariffs. I was hoping to have Steve Bannon come on. He's got tied up. He was in D.C., obviously hobnobbing with the rich and famous. You know, he's as he does. He knows everyone. But tariffs. So this big downdraft in tariffs. Okay, let's hope that the market finds a bottom, gets its footing. You know, we can put that up there, guys. This is the Dow today and the various markets. The Dow, S&P down anywhere between 4% and 6%. The good news was oil was also down $5, 7%. That's helpful. But there's an issue I have, and I wanted to talk to Steve about it. And I actually sent this into the folks of the White House. I tried to get it to Trump. I've tried to get it to Trump several times today. I have no response coming back, and it's really concerning me. They sold this as a tariff retaliation. In other words, we were only going to do what other countries were going to do to us with tariffs, and we were going to be nice to them, lenient on them, and only do half of what they're doing to us. But the problem is they said it was a tariff coming in, and the ones we were paying going out, and they came up with a tariff number for other countries. I was having a hard time finding it. But I realized at some point, and I hope I'm wrong. You tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am. The number that they're using, all of those numbers, Howard Lutnick held up the big sign yesterday in the Rose Garden. He had, China, India, every country, and they had a number, and they said it's tariffs plus difficulty getting into their markets. I don't think it's that, because I took every single country on that list, and I did a math calculation on it. And what I found was it's the actual trade deficit with that country, so $100 billion with country X, divided by the total number of exports from that country. So if it was $300 billion and we had a $100 billion trade deficit, it was 100 divided by 33% as their tariff. And it's not a tariff. It's based on a trade deficit. I hope I'm wrong, but every single country worked out that way, with the exception of the ones that we had a trade surplus, and then we just slapped 10% on it. I just don't want Trump out there saying it's one thing because his economist told him it's that, and it was based on some entirely different calculation. We'll find out. Before we go, I just want to remind you about my podcast and YouTube page, which are both updated daily with brand new content, different content. Yeah, you can get this show, but you get shorts, you got exclusive interviews. Sometimes I'm doing things that I'm not allowed to use language on cable news, but we do it on YouTube. I need you to subscribe. I want you to subscribe to YouTube and my podcast because I want you to see everything we do. I love you guys. Have a great, I'll be in Orlando tomorrow. Won't be in this studio, but we'll take you from Orlando. We're out.